Welcome back once again. This is the third part of my class on Ode to Autumn by John Keats. We have covered the first stanza of the poem. Now we can look at the second stanza of the poem. I assume that you are sitting with the text of the poem with you and you are looking at the text. As I mentioned in the last class, and you can now pause my video for the time being and you can read the second stanza of the poem silently and mark the difficult words and expressions. Try to understand the meaning, idea of the second stanza of the poem. Okay. Now I think that you have a completed reading of the second stanza of the poem and you have got some idea of the second stanza of the poem. Shall I proceed? Okay. The second stanza of the poem deals with late harvest abundance and leisureliness. The first stanza of the poem deals with pre-harvest abundance and ripeness, and the second stanza now deals with late harvest abundance and leisureliness. Keats presents the familiar sights of the of autumn season, and he beautifully personifies these familiar sights. Okay. Now we can look at the second stanza of the poem. Let me read the first line of the second stanza. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Thee is autumn. Thee means you. Here autumn season. Then the first line is a rhetorical question. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? This is a rhetorical question, which implies that anyone who goes out in the open can see autumn sitting in the midst of his or her store in the field. Here, autumn is personified as a farmer or as a harvester. Next line. Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. Here, autumn is presented as a farmer or a harvester sitting carefree and comfortably on the granary floor. And sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor. Then careless means in a carefree manner, light-heartedly. Autumn is carefree because the harvest is over and there is not much work to do. See? Granary is the storehouse where threshed grain is stored. See, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. The locks of hair on autumn's head would be gently lifted by the light winds that separate the grain from the chaff. Winnowing, separating the grain from the chaff. Here, autumn is represented as a farmer or as a harvester with a long hair. Then the wind ruffles the air. So this is the first picture. If anyone wants to see autumn, he may go to the fields and see him or her in the guise of a farmer or as a harvester sitting carefree on the granary floor. This is the first picture. Autumn is personified as a farmer or as a harvester. Okay. It is a familiar sight and it is a very beautiful picture. Autumn is seen in the guise of a farmer sitting carefree on the granary floor with her or his locks of hair waving in the winnowing wind. Now the next lines. Or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. So this is a second picture. Autumn is here personified as a tired reaper sleeping in a half reaped furrow, overcome with the fume of poppy. Furrow means a narrow groove made in the ground, especially by a plow. Here, the word is used in the sense of a cornfield. Poppy is a flower with narcotic properties. Opium is extracted from it. Fume means smell, odor. And this it is a very beautiful picture. The second picture, autumn is personified as a reaper, tired reaper, as a tired reaper, sleeping in a half-reaped furrow. And this reaper is overcome with the scent, with the smell of poppies. Okay. The description of not over, and poet says, while thy hook spares the next sward and all its twained flowers. See, while thy hook, the reaper's scythe, the reaper's sickle, the hook or the scythe or sickle is a curved instrument for cutting corn. While thy hook spares the next sward, as the reaper lies asleep, the next sward means a ridge or row of corn, the width of corn cut by a single sweep of the scythe. And while thy hook spares the next sward and all its twined flowers. Twined means intertwined, interlaced. Twined flowers, the poppies that grow amidst the corn. See, as the reaper lies asleep, the next sward and all the poppies in it are spared. That is, the reaper leaves the next row of corn unreaped. So the picture is complete. The second picture is very beautiful one. Autumn is the first one. Autumn first picture is that autumn is seen as a harvester or as a farmer sitting carefree on the granary floor with his locks of hair or with her locks of hair waving in the winnowing wind. Then second picture is that autumn is also seen in the guise of a reaper who has been induced to sleep by the fumes of poppies amidst the half-reaped furrow. As he is, as she is, or as he is asleep, with a scythe held loosely in his or her hand, the next row of corn is unreaped, and the poppies among us the corn are also unreaped. Okay, look at the next lines. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook. So, this is a very beautiful picture. This is the third picture. Autumn is personified as a gleaner. Gleaner is a person who picks up grain left in a field by the reapers. Autumn is here personified as a gleaner with a load balanced on his or on her head, crossing a brook. See, this is the third picture. Then first one, autumn is seen as a harvester or a farmer sitting carefree on the granary floor. Second one is that of a reaper who is very tired. And the third one is that of is that of a gleaner. Autumn is seen in the guise of a gleaner with the sheaves of corn balanced on her head or on his head, crossing a brook. Okay, this is the third picture. And now look at the last two lines. Or by a cider press, with patient look, thou watchest the last oozings, hours by hours. This is the fourth picture that Keats gives us about autumn season. Here, autumn is pictured as a person patiently watching the cider oozing from the press. Cider press is a machine to crush apples and extract juice. Cider is a fermented drink from apples. Last oozings means last drops of the apple juice. Hours by hours, patiently for hours together. This is the fourth picture. It is a very beautiful picture. Then, um, here, autumn is seen as a side oppressor at work. As a side oppressor, sitting by the side oppress, watching for hours, the apple juice coming out drop by drop. This is the fourth picture. First one, autumn is seen as a first one, autumn is personified as a farmer or a harvester sitting carefree on the granary floor. Then um, autumn is presented as a weary reaper as lying asleep in a half-reaped furrow overcome by the fumes of the poppy. And third one is that of a gleaner crossing a brook. And the fourth one is that of a side oppressor at work. So four very beautiful pictures. Autumn is personified here in the second stanza. In the first stanza, Keats personifies autumn as the bosom friend of the sun. And then in the second stanza, he personifies autumn as a farmer sitting carefree on the granary floor, as a reaper lying asleep in a half-reaped furrow, as a gleaner crossing the brook, and as a side oppressor at work. Okay, let me read the second stanza again. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press, with a patient look, thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. See, in the second stanza, Keats describes the familiar scenes of the season and personifies autumn. Often, autumn may be seen carelessly sitting on a granary floor with his hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. Sometimes, autumn is seen asleep in a half reaped furrow, overpowered by the fumes of poppy. Sometimes, autumn is seen crossing a brook with a load carefully balanced on his or on her head. Sometimes, autumn is seen sitting patiently watching the oozing of the cider. So, these four pictures are the familiar sights of autumn season. And by personifying autumn, Keats presents these familiar sights of the season. The entire stanza exemplifies Keats' pictorial imagination. And as personifying autumn, Keats personifies autumn season both as a male and a female figure. Okay, so it is a very beautiful stanza. Now we have got one more stanza remaining that we can do in the next class. You read the first two stanzas, and the third stanza we can discuss the next class. Until then, goodbye and have a nice day. Thank you very much.